Number one, the billionaire productivity secret in the experimental lifestyle. How do you become more productive? Richard Branson leaned back and thought for a second. The tropical sounds of his private oasis, Necker Island, murmured in the background. 20 people sat around him at rapt attention, wondering what a billionaire's answer would be to one of the big questions, perhaps the biggest questions of business. The group had been assembled by marketing impresario Joe Polish to brainstorm growth options for Richard's philanthropic Virgin Unite. It was one of his many new ambitious projects. Virgin Group had already had more than 300 companies, more than 50,000 employees, and $25 billion per year in revenue. In other words, Branson had personally built an empire larger than the GDP of some developing countries. Then he broke the silence. Workout. He was serious and elaborated. Working out gave him at least 4 additional hours of productive time every day. The cool breeze punctuated his answer like an exclamation point. The 4-hour body, 4HB, is much more than a book. It is a manifesto, a call to arms for a new mental mode of living, the experimental lifestyle. It's up to you, not your doctor, not the newspaper, to learn what you best respond to. The benefits go far beyond the physical. If you understand politics well enough to vote for a president, or if you have ever filed taxes, you can learn a few important scientific rules for redesigning your body. These rules will become your friends, 100% reliable and trusted. This changes everything. This book is not intended as a comprehensive treatise on all things related to the human body. The goal is to share what the author, Tim Ferriss, has found to be the 2.5% that delivers 95% of the results in rapid body redesign and performance enhancement. If you are already at 5% body fat or bench pressing 400 pounds, you are in the top 1% of humans and are now in the world of incremental gains. This bite-sized book is for the other 99% of people who want to experience near unbelievable gains in short periods. Number 2, the minimum effective dose delivers the most dramatic results in the least amount of time. The minimum effective dose, MED, is simply the smallest dose that will produce the desired outcome. Anything beyond the MED is wasteful. To boil water, the MED is 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius at standard air pressure. Boiled is boiled. Higher temperatures will not make it more boiled. Higher temperatures just consume more resources that could be used for something else more productive. The minimum effective dose, MED, is the smallest dose that will produce the desired outcome. In the context of body redesign, there are 2 fundamental MEDs to keep in mind. Number 1, to remove stored fat, do the least necessary to trigger a fat loss cascade of specific hormones. Number 2, to add muscle in small or large quantities, do the least necessary to trigger local, specific muscles and systemic, hormonal growth mechanisms. Knocking over the dominoes that trigger both of these events takes surprisingly little. Don't complicate them. For a given muscle group like the shoulders, activating the local growth mechanism might require just 80 seconds of tension using 50 pounds once every 7 days. More is not better. In fact, your greatest challenge will be resisting the temptation to do more. To remove stored fat, do the least necessary to trigger a fat loss cascade of specific hormones. To add muscle in small or large quantities, do the least necessary to trigger specific muscles and systemic growth mechanisms. If you need 15 minutes in the sun to trigger a melanin response, 15 minutes is your MED for tanning. More than 15 minutes is redundant and will just result in burning and a forced break from the beach. During this forced break from the beach, let's assume 1 week, someone else who heated his natural 15-minute MED will be able to fit in 4 more tanning sessions. He is 4 shades darker, whereas you have returned to your pale, pre-beach self. Sad little manatee. For a given muscle group like the shoulders, activating the local growth mechanism might require just 80 seconds of tension using 50-pound weights once every 7 days, for example. The stimulus, just like the 212 degree Fahrenheit for boiling water, is enough to trigger certain prostaglandins, transcription factors, and all manner of complicated biological reactions. What are transcription factors? You don't need to know. In fact, You don't need to understand any of the biology, just as you don't need to understand radiation to use a microwave oven. Press a few buttons in the right order and you're done. In this context, 80 seconds as a target is all you need to understand. That is the button. If instead of 80 seconds, you mimic a glossy magazine routine, say an arbitrary 5 set of 10 repetitions, it is the muscular equivalent of sitting in the sun for an hour with a 15-minute MED. Not only is this wasteful, but it is also a predictable path for preventing and reversing gains. The organs and glands that help repair damaged tissue have more limitations than your enthusiasm. More is not better. Indeed, your greatest challenge will be resisting this temptation to do more. The MED not only delivers the most dramatic results, but it does so in the least time possible. Did you know? It's impossible to evaluate or even understand anything that you cannot measure. Number 3, why a calorie isn't a calorie. Calories are all alike, whether they come from beef or bourbon, from sugar or starch, or cheese and crackers. Too many calories are just too many calories. Fred Starr, founder and former chair of the Harvard University Nutrition Department. The above statement is so ridiculous as to defy belief, but let's take a look at the issue through a more rational lens. Hypothetical scenarios. Different sources of calories equal different results. Scenario number 1. 2 male identical twins eat the same meals for 30 days. The only difference? One of the subjects just finished a strong course of antibiotics and now lacks sufficient good bacteria for full digestion. Will the body composition outcomes be the same? Of course not. Rule number 1. It's not what you put in your mouth that matters. It's what makes it to your bloodstream. If it passes through, it doesn't count. Scenario number 2. 3 females of the same race, age, and body composition each consume 2,000 calories daily for 30 days. Subject 1 consumes nothing but table sugar. Subject 2 consumes nothing but lean chicken breasts. And subject 3 consumes nothing but mayonnaise. 2,000 calories is just 19.4 tablespoons if you'd care to indulge. Will the body composition outcomes be the same? Of course not. Rule number 2. The hormonal responses to carbohydrates, CHO, protein, and fat are different. There is no shortage of clinical studies to prove that beef calories do not equal bourbon calories. One such study, conducted by Keckwick and Pawan, compared 3 groups put on calorically equal, isocaloric, semi-starvation diets of 90% fat, 90% protein, or 90% carbohydrate. Though ensuring compliance was a challenge, the outcomes were not at all the same. 1,000 calories at 90% fat equals weight loss of 0.9 pounds per day. 1,000 calories at 90% protein equals weight loss of 0.6 pounds per day. 1,000 calories at 90% carbohydrate equal weight gain of 0.24 pounds per day. Calorie allocation is affected by digestion, the ratio of protein to carbohydrates to fat, and timing. These factors can influence fat loss and muscle gain. Did you know cellulite is fat? Nothing special, neither a disease nor a unique female problem without solutions. It can be removed. Number 4. How to lose 20 pounds in 30 days without exercise. It is possible to lose 20 pounds of body fat in 30 days by optimizing any of 3 factors: exercise, diet, or drug supplement regimen. 20 pounds for most people means moving down at least 2 clothing sizes, whether that's going from a size 14 dress to a size 10, or from a double XL shirt to a large. The waist and hips show an even more dramatic reduction in circumference. There are just 5 simple rules to follow. Rule number 1, avoid white carbohydrates. Avoid any carbohydrate that is or can be white. The following foods are prohibited, except within 30 minutes of finishing resistance training: all bread, rice, including brown, cereal, potatoes, pasta, tortillas, and fried food with breading. If you avoid eating the aforementioned foods and anything else white, you'll be safe. Rule number 2, eat the same few meals over and over again. The most successful dieters, regardless of whether their goal is muscle gain or fat loss, eat the same few meals over and over again. There are 47,000 products in the average US grocery store, but only a handful of them won't make you fat. Mix and match from the following list. Proteins. Egg whites with 1 to 2 whole eggs for flavor, or if organic, 2 to 5 whole eggs, including yolks. Chicken breast or thigh. Beef, preferably grass-fed, fish, pork. Legumes. Lentils, also called dal, black beans, pinto beans, red beans, asparagus, peas, broccoli, green beans. Eat as much as you like of the above food items, but keep it simple. Pick 3 of 4 meals and repeat them. Almost all restaurants can give you a salad or vegetables in place of French fries, potatoes, or rice. Rule number 3, don't drink calories. Drink massive quantities of water and as much unsweetened tea, coffee, with no more than 2 tablespoons of cream. The author suggests using cinnamon instead, or other no-calorie or low-calorie beverages as you like. Do not drink milk, including soy milk, normal soft drinks, or fruit juice. Limit diet soft drinks to no more than 16 ounces per day if you can, as aspartame can stimulate weight gain. Rule number 4, don't eat fruits. The only exception to the no fruit rule are tomatoes and avocados, and the latter should be eaten in moderation, no more than 1 cup or 1 meal per day. Humans don't need fruit 6 days a week, and they certainly don't need it year-round. Can fruit juice screw up fat loss? Oh, yes, and screws up much more. Not to speculate, the author tested the effect of fructose in 2 tests, the first during a no fructose diet, no juice and no fruit, and the second one after a week of consuming 14 ounces, about 1.5 large glasses, of pulp-free orange juice upon waking and before bed. The orange juice was the only thing distinguishing diets A and B. The changes were incredible. Before and after, cholesterol, 203 equals 243 out of a healthy range. LDL, 127 equals 165, also out of range. 2 other values shot up unexpectedly. Albumin, 4.3 equals 4.9, out of range. Iron, 71 equals 191, out of range, aka into the stratosphere. Don't drink fruit juice. It increases albumin that binds to testosterone and renders it inert. This result was completely out of the blue and is not good, especially in men. It might come as a surprise, but men don't menstruate. This means that men lack a good method of clearing out excessive iron, which can be toxic. Rule number 5, take 1 day off per week. The author of The 4-Hour Body recommends Saturdays as your dieter's gone wild days. You're allowed to eat whatever you want on Saturdays. There are no limits or boundaries during this day of gluttonous enjoyment. Did you know another reason to avoid the whiteys is that chlorine dioxide, one of the chemicals used to bleach flour, combines with residual protein in most of these foods to form loxin? Researchers use loxin in lab rats to induce diabetes. Number 5, damage control, preventing fat gain when you binge. Sitting down for Thanksgiving dinner or butter cookies at Christmas sounds like a binge. That, in and of itself, doesn't need to mean horrible guilt and extra fat rolls afterward. If you plan ahead of time and understand a little science, it's possible to minimize the damage. Tim Ferriss eats whatever he wants every Saturday, and he follows specific steps to minimize fat gain during overfeeding. In basic terms, the goal is simple: to have as much of the crap ingested either go into muscle tissue or out of the body unabsorbed. Damage control diverts the bad ingested food into muscle tissue, passes it out of the body unabsorbed. You can do this by focusing on 3 principles. Principle number 1, minimize the release of insulin, storage hormone. Insulin releases is minimized by blunting sharp jumps in blood sugar. Number 1, ensure that your first meal of the day is not a binge meal. Make it high in protein, at least 30 grams, and insoluble fiber. Legumes will handle this. The protein will decrease your appetite for the remainder of the binge and prevent total self-destruction. Number 2, consume a small quantity of fructose, fruit sugar, and grapefruit juice before the second meal, which is the first crap meal. Even small fructose dosing has an impressive near flatlining effect on blood glucose. Number 3, consume citric juices, whether lime juice is squeezed into water or lemon juice on food. Ensure your first meal of the day is high in protein. It decreases your appetite for the remainder of the binge and prevents total self-destruction. Principle number 2, increase the speed of gastric emptying or how quickly food exits the stomach. Binging is a rare circumstance where you want the food or some of it to pass through your gastrointestinal tract so quickly that its constituent parts aren't absorbed well. This can be accomplished primarily through caffeine and yerba mate tea, which includes the additional stimulants theobromine, found in dark chocolate, and theophylline, found in green tea. Consume 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine or 16 ounces of cold yerba mate with the most crap-laden meals. Binging is passing food through your gastrointestinal tract quickly to prevent absorption. Principle number 3, engage in brief muscular contraction throughout the binge. For muscular contractions, the author recommends air squats, wall presses, tricep extensions against the wall, and chest pulls with an elastic band, as all 3 are portable and can be done without causing muscle trauma that screws up training. The latter 2 can be performed by anyone, even those who have difficulty walking. Why the hell would you want to do 60 to 90 seconds of funny exercises a few minutes before you eat and ideally, again, about 90 minutes afterward? Use supplements that increase insulin sensitivity. AGG and PAGG if you're going a whole hog. This will reduce the amount of insulin the pancreas releases in spite of mild or severe glucose surges. Answer: because it brings glucose transporter type 4, GLUT4, to the surface of muscle cells, opening more gates for the calories to flow into. The more muscular gates you open before insulin triggers the same GLUT4 on the surface of fat cells, the more you can put in muscle instead of fat. Think of it as insurance. If you take 100 steps after each meal, you can live to be 99 years old. Chinese proverb. Number 6, the microbiome balancing bacteria for fat loss. Why is obesity so much more common today than it was even a few decades ago? Researchers are starting to find bacterial clues that may point to an answer. There has been a profound shift in our populations of gut bacteria, the little creatures that live in our digestive tracts. And studies show the changes are correlated with increased fatness. There are 10 times more bacterial cells in your body than human cells, 100 trillion of them to 10 trillion of you. Gut bacteria help us, improving our immune system, providing vitamins, and preventing other harmful bacteria from infecting us. These bacteria also regulate how well we harvest energy from our food. So far, 2 primary strains of bacteria have been found to influence fat absorption, almost regardless of diet: Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. Lean people have more Bacteroidetes and few Firmicutes. Obese people have more Firmicutes and fewer Bacteroidetes. As obese people lose weight, the ratio of bacteria in their gut swings confidently over to more Bacteroidetes. This finding has significant enough implications for national health that the National Institute of Health, NIH, launched the multi-year Human Microbiome Project in late 2007. It is like a human genome project for bacteria and intended to explore how some of the 40,000 plus species of microfriends and friends are affecting our health and how we might modify them to help us more. Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes are 2 strains of bacteria that influence fat absorption. This could take some time, but you don't need to wait to act. There are a few things you can do now to cultivate healthy and fat-reducing gut flora. Number 1, get off the Splenda. A 2008 study at Duke University found that giving Splenda to rats significantly decreased the number of helpful bacteria in the gut. Once again, the fake sugars turn out just as bad, if not worse, than the real deal. Number 2, go fermented. Dr. Weston Price is famous for his studies of 12 traditional diets of near disease-free indigenous communities spread around the globe. He found that one common element was fermented foods, which were consumed daily. Fermented foods contain high levels of healthy bacteria and should be viewed as a mandatory piece of your dietary puzzle. Fermented foods contain high levels of healthy bacteria and should form a critical part of your diet. Number 3, consider probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are bacteria. They are fermentable substrates that help bacteria grow and thrive. Though the research is preliminary, introducing pre and probiotics together in the diet could have beneficial effects on allergies, aging, obesity, and a range of diseases from AIDS to type 2 diabetes. In a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study of 39 patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, Lactobacillus casei strain Shirota was found to significantly decrease anxiety symptoms. Probiotics, bifidobacteria, is one example, have also been shown as an effective alternative treatment for depression because of their power to inhibit inflammatory molecules called cytokines, decrease oxidative stress, and correct the overgrowth of unwanted bacteria that prevents optimal nutrient absorption in the intestines. Give your good bacteria an upgrade and get your microbiome in shape. Faster fat loss and better mental health are just two of the benefits. Number 7, steroids 101, fact versus fiction. Did you know that birth control drugs are technically steroids? This is also true of the cortisone shots that future Baseball Hall of Famer Curt Schilling used in the 2004 World Series, the same anti-inflammatory injections Andre Agassi used during his final US Open. Steroids represent an incredibly broad and important class of hormone. There are hundreds of variations in plants, fungi, and animals. If you eliminated steroids from your body, you would die. The term steroid is most often used in the media to refer to anabolic androgenic steroids, AAS, more commonly called anabolic steroids. These compounds are variations of the hormone testosterone or are intended to mimic the effects of testosterone. Anabolic steroids are intended to mimic the effects of testosterone in the body. Nandrolone, for example, is testosterone that has been chemically modified to minimize its conversion to estrogen or DHT, the latter change making it less androgenic. That is, it will have less of an amplifying effect on secondary male characteristics like hair growth or loss from the scalp or thickening of the vocal cords. The author has legally used low-dose anabolic steroids and other growth agents under medical supervision, both before and after joint surgeries. Multiple NDs reviewed blood tests every 2 to 4 weeks to ensure that there were no complications. Steroids are specifically designed to increase protein synthesis, especially for surgeries. Is he encouraging recreational or cosmetic use without medical supervision or legal prescriptions? No. Anabolic steroids are Class 3 controlled substances, and you can receive up to 3 years imprisonment for possession and up to 10 years imprisonment if convicted of trafficking or intent to traffic. Neither does he advocate that healthy children, adolescents, or women should use powerful male hormones. Tim Ferriss also agrees that athletes should be disqualified if they break the rules of their sport. But science shouldn't be distorted. These are valuable drugs with real applications. Here's a small sample of well-documented side effects provided by the National Institute of Health. Swelling of the eyes, face, lips, tongue, or throat. Wheezing or difficulty breathing. Fast heartbeat and breathing. Cold, clammy skin, ringing in the ears, loss of hearing, bloody vomit, bright red blood in stools. This list should scare you. It should scare you because these aren't side effects of anabolic steroids. These are common side effects of aspirin. The first rule of drug use, there is no safe drug. Some drugs are safer than others, but almost anything will kill you at a high enough dose. It's the dose that makes the poison. Never forget this and don't confuse the effects of moderate use with those of outright abuse. It's the difference between a single 8 to 12 week cycle of low-dose injectable testosterone for surgery on the one hand and uncycled megadoses of the oral steroid Anadrol 50 for elite bodybuilding on the other. It's the difference between a baby aspirin, 75 to 85 milligrams, and half a bottle of aspirin. It's the difference between having a glass of wine before bed and drinking bottles until you wake up in the intensive care unit. Sensationalism is more common than good science, but the two are not the same. Did you know Nandrolone is testosterone that has been chemically modified to minimize its conversion to estrogen or DHT. The latter change making it less androgenic, that is. It will have less of an amplifying effect on secondary male characteristics like hair growth or loss from the scalp or thickening of the vocal cords. Number 8, building the perfect posterior. This chapter will teach both men and women how to build a superhuman posterior chain, which includes all the muscles from the base of your skull to your Achilles tendons. In the process, it will also teach women how to build the perfect ass and lose dramatic amounts of fat. With the two-handed swing, you can have Michelle Obama's arms in 4 weeks. Every woman wants Michelle Obama's arms. The truth is that you can have them and a new body in 4 weeks. The two-handed swing is the jewel. If you can only do one movement for the rest of your life, do the kettlebell swing. Here are a few guidelines. Number 1, stand with your feet 6 to 12 inches outside of shoulder width on either side, each foot pointed outward about 30 degrees. If toes pointed straight ahead were 12 o'clock on a clock face, your left foot would point at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and your right would point at 1 or 2. Number 2, keep your shoulders pulled back, retracted, and down to avoid rounding your back. Number 3, the lowering movement, backswing, is a sitting back on a chair movement, not a squatting down movement. Number 4, do not let your shoulders go in front of your knees at any point. Number 5, imagine pinching a penny between your butt cheeks when you pop your hips forward. This should be a forceful pop, and it should be impossible to contract your ass more. If your dog's head gets in the way, it should be lights out for Fido. The minimal effective dose, how to lose 3% body fat in 1 hour a month. Body recomposition depends more on behavioral modification. Tim Ferriss proposes a 4-week test focusing on the swing and minuscule dietary changes. Number 1, switch your breakfast to a high-protein meal, at least 30% protein, a la the slow-carb diet. A high-protein breakfast, such as spinach, black beans, and egg whites, a third of a carton of Eggology liquid egg whites with cayenne pepper flakes. Number 2, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, perform a simple sequence of 3 exercises before breakfast. 1 set, 22-legged glute activation raises from the floor. 1 set, 15 flying dogs, 1 set each side. 1 set, 50 kettlebell swings. For you, start with the weight that allows you to do 20 perfect repetitions, but no more than 30. In other words, start with weight no less than 20 pounds that you can grow into. That's it. Body recomposition depends largely on behavioral modification. Total prescribed exercise, about 5 minutes per session by 3 sessions equals 15 minutes per week, 1 hour over a month. When Fleur B, a major breadaholic by culture, European, and a workaholic by training, journalist, consulted the author and was prescribed the above 4-week test, she recorded the below before and after measurements. Before and after, total weight, 139 pounds and 136 pounds. Body fat percentage, 21.1%, 29.33 pounds. And after, 18%, 24.48 pounds, almost 1 pound of fat loss per week. Thigh fat thickness, 10.4 millimeters, and after, 10.2 millimeters. Tricep fat thickness, 9.7 millimeters, after, 7.7 millimeters. Waist fat thickness, 7 millimeters, and after, 4.1 millimeters. Critical mass, the Kiwi's complete A to B workout. For those who want a more extended ass program, here's the Kiwi's complete sequence. Workout A. All exercises, except for kettlebell swings, are performed for 10 repetitions using 13 repetition max RM weight. Number 1, heavy dumbbell front squat to press, ass to heels. Squeak glutes at the bottom for 1 second before rising. Number 2, 1 arm and 1 leg DB row. Number 3, walking lunges with sprinter knee raise. Number 4, wide grip push-ups. Number 5, 2-arm kettlebell swings 20 to 25 times. Repeat sequence 2 to 4 times. Workout B. Number 1, one leg Romanian deadlift, 10 to 12 reps each side. Number 2, chin up, 4-second negative lowering portions only, 10 times or until you cannot control descent. Number 3, one leg hamstring curls on a Swiss ball, 6 to 12 reps each leg. Number 4, plank for abs, and gluteus medius on sides. Progression, start with 30 seconds front, 30 seconds each side, working up to 90 seconds maximum. Number 5, reverse hyper 15 to 25 times. Repeat sequence 2 to 4 times. If you can only do one movement for the rest of your life, do the kettlebell swing. Number 9, 6-minute abs, 2 exercises that work. Tim Ferriss, the author, has never had visible abs. Even when his body fat was low enough to show veins everywhere else, his frontal six-pack, the rectus abdominis, showed almost no separation. He repeatedly performed conventional ab exercises for more than a decade with no visible difference. He was convinced it was just a matter of time. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. However, things changed when he began testing basic assumptions in 2009. It took a week to arrive at a reductionist program of 2 exercises. He performed these exercises just twice a week on Mondays and Fridays after kettlebell swings. In a matter of 3 weeks, he had a six-pack. There's just one more prerequisite for visible abs. Follow a diet that allows sustained low body fat of 12% or less. Ferriss suggests a slow-carb diet as it has the highest compliance rate ever observed, but other viable options include a ketogenic diet, especially the cyclical ketogenic diet, and intermittent fasting, IF. For visible abs, maintain a diet that allows sustained low body fat of 12% or less. Movement number 1, the myotatic crunch. Ferriss searched for common attributes in exercises that hadn't worked. The shared feature of all the dominant exercises, in particular the floor crunch, is that they use no more than half of the full range of motion, ROM, of the abdominals. He decided to ignore the fetal range of motion altogether for 8 weeks and focus on the stretch position achieved with full back extension. The result was a myotatic crunch, so named because it leverages the fully stretched position and the resultant reflex, myotatic reflex or stretch reflex, for a stronger contraction that he had been able to achieve otherwise. It didn't take 8 weeks to see a difference. It took 3. A flaw in dominant exercises is that they do not fully work the abdominals. Using a basu, or Swiss ball, ensure your ass is close to the floor, usually no more than 6 inches off the ground. Then follow the next 5 steps. Number 1, start with arms stretch overhead as high as possible. Extend your hands as if in a diving position. Keep your arms behind or next to your ears for the entire exercise. Number 2, lower under control for 4 seconds until your fingers touch the floor, the entire time attempting to extend your hands further away from the ball. Number 3, pause at the bottom for 2 seconds, aiming for maximum elongation. Number 4, rise under control and pause in the upper, fully contracted position for 2 seconds. The arms should not pass perpendicular to the ground. Number 5, repeat for a total of 10 repetitions. Once you can complete 10 repetitions, add weight to your hands. Movement number 2, the cat vomit exercise. Unless you purchase a core set at the same time, doing crunches will not pull your abdomen in. The muscle fibers of the six-pack, rectus abdominis, run vertically. The muscle you want to target instead is called the transverse abdominis, TVA, the deepest of the 6 main abdominal muscles, which is composed of fibers that run horizontally like a belt. The TVA is nicknamed the corset muscle, and if your abs have ever ached from laughing or coughing, you've felt it working. The TVA muscle is the deepest of the 6 main abdominal muscles, which is composed of fibers that run horizontally like a belt. The transverse abdominis TVA muscle is made up of fibers. When you fully work them, you will feel an ache when you laugh or cough. Number 1, get on all fours and keep your gaze focused either directly under your head or slightly in front of you. Don't arch your back or strain your neck. Number 2, forcefully exhale from your mouth until all air is fully expelled. Your abs should be contracted from this forceful exhale. Full exhalation is necessary to contract the transverse abdominals, and you'll use gravity to provide resistance. Number 3, hold your breath and pull your belly button upward toward your spine as hard as you can for a target of 8 to 12 seconds. Number 4, inhale fully through the nose after the 8 to 12 second hold. Number 5, take one breath cycle of rest, exhale slowly out of the mouth, inhale slowly through the nose, then repeat the above for a total of 10 repetitions. There you have it, the myotidic crunch and the cat vomit exercise. Heave, groan, and be merry. Did you know the myotidic crunch is so named because it leverages the fully stretched myotidic reflex of stretch reflex for a stronger contraction than you'll be able to achieve otherwise? Number 10, improving sex. A woman has to be comfortable with masturbating. Tim Ferriss says, if she doesn't masturbate regularly, she'll be more trouble baggage-wise than it's worth unless you get off on being the fixer. She has to at least come up to the starting line and be comfortable conversing with her orgasmic potential. No man can give you an orgasm. He can only help you do it yourself. Tim Ferriss. As a woman, you should not be embarrassed to show your O face during orgasm to partners. It is not ugly or unattractive. Men go nuts for it. For a woman to enjoy improved sex life, a lady must come up to the starting line and be comfortable conversing with her own orgasmic potential. Consider the following 2 slight modifications to your sex positions. Number 1, changing the angle of penetration so that the head of the penis makes more contact with the female G-spot, which is generally about a quarter in size and 1 or 2 inches inside the vagina on the top side. If the male inserts an index finger up to the second knuckle, palm up, and makes a come hither motion, the fingertips should touch a sponge-like tissue or be within an inch of it. This is the G-spot. Number 2, changing the pressure of the position so that the man's pelvic bone is in direct contact with the clitoris. Improved angle missionary. Elevate the woman's hips on a pillow to tilt her hips toward her head. You can use buckwheat whole pillows, which are firm and unlike foam or feather pillows, don't collapse. They conform equally well to female buttocks while keeping them a perfect 6 or so inches off the bed. The man then moves his hips as close as possible to the woman's hips while keeping his heels under his buttocks. He should be sitting Japanese style, sitting on heels with knees spread as wide as is comfortable. Change the angle of penetration so that the head of your penis makes more contact with the female G-spot, which is generally about a quarter in size and 1 to 2 inches inside the vagina on the top side. Experiment with different depths of penetration. Using a rhythm of 9 shorter half-length penetrations with 1 long is particularly effective. Use the bottom of the opening of her vagina as a fulcrum for the penis, which will act as a lever. The woman should test A, pulling her knees toward her chest to tilt her hips toward her, and B, placing her feet flat on the bed to elevate her hips. One will usually feel awesome, while the other will feel awkward. Note for the big gents on long strokes. If your penis is apt to hit her cervix in this position, which is not pleasant for a woman, open up one hip, as they say in the adult film business. Putting her belly button at 12 noon, aim your penis at 10 or 12 o'clock. This works for all positions where deep penetration is possible. Doggy style, knees on shoulder, etc. Pain isn't sexy unless the woman tells you it is. Improve pressure missionary. To accomplish this position, the male must shift his weight forward a few inches. First, he must straighten his legs. Bringing them closer together makes this easier, so the knees are off of the bed. Then he'll support more weight on her pelvis, the entire purpose, and his arms. This changes the angle of penetration so that the focal point of friction is no longer the head of the penis against the vaginal wall, but rather the man's pelvic bone on the woman's clitoris. This kills 2 birds with 1 stone. The man can last far longer, and the woman receives direct clitoral stimulation. Elevate the woman's hips on a pillow to tilt her hips toward her head. You can use buckwheat hull pillows, which are firm and unlike foam or feather pillows, don't collapse. Number 11. The practice and how to, the 15-minute orgasm. Orgasm is when there is no resistance, no physical or emotional blocking to a single point of contact between one finger and the clitoris. This state naturally leads to the involuntary contractions and flushing that most associate with the word orgasm. Orgasm is an involuntary contraction due to a single point of contact between one finger and the clitoris. Kissing, fondling, disrobing, whispering, and requesting are all fun and wonderful parts of sex. Unfortunately, multitasking these actions often fractures the attention a woman needs to reach orgasm. The technique requires 15 minutes of 100% concentration on approximately 3 square millimeters of contact. Nothing more. Test this and practice it. The payoff will alter your sexual experiences forever. This is explained from the standpoint of a man. Number 1, explain to your partner that it is a goal-less practice. This is 100% critical. There is no objective, just to focus on a single point of contact. The phrasing should emphasize this and remove all expectations and pressure. I'm going to touch you for 15 minutes. You don't need to do anything. You don't have to do anything afterward. There is nowhere to get to, nothing to make happen. Just focus on the single point of contact. It's an exercise. View any sexual exercise with mindful awareness. There is no goal. Number 2, get into position. First, the woman disrobes from the waist down and lies on her back using a pillow for neck support. Her legs are bent and spread, feet together in a butterfly position. If this makes her hips uncomfortable on one or both sides, pillows can be put underneath her knees. Based on the premise that it is easier to achieve the proper angle of contact with the left hand, the man should sit to her right side on top of at least 2 pillows and straddle his bent left leg perpendicularly across her torso, foot flat on the opposite side. Add as many pillows as necessary to relieve any pressure from his left leg on her abdomen. Too many is better than too few. His right leg is straight or relaxed in a butterfly position. Number 3, set the timer for 15 minutes. Find the upper quadrant point of greatest sensation and stroke. Limit the session to exactly 15 minutes. This removes performance pressure and creates a safe start and end container for the woman. Look at it as you would a yoga routine or deep breathing sequence. It is an exercise in focused repetition, not a goal. Limit the orgasmic session to 15 minutes. This removes performance pressure and creates a safe start and end container for the woman. How to find an upper quadrant point of greatest sensation? Separate the labia. Retract the clitoral hood upward with the heel of the palm. Anchor the clitoris with the right thumb by holding the hood back. Put your left hand under her buttocks, 2 fingers under each cheek, with the thumb resting on, not in, the base of the entrance to the vagina, ring of introitus. This will act as an anchor and help the woman to relax. Imagine you're looking directly at the clitoris from between her legs, with the top of the clitoris as 12 o'clock on a clock face. Find 1 p.m., ideally a small indentation or pocket between the hood and her clitoris. With your right hand's index finger, begin stroking using the lightest touch possible and only 1 by 16 inches or so of movement. The tip of the finger is better than the pad, so cut your nails beforehand. Ground at the end. Once the 15 minutes have elapsed, grounding is performed to ostensibly ease the woman out of the experience. Though there are sophisticated options for this closing portion, novice males can simply apply strong pressure down on the pubic bone and up toward the woman's head using overlapping hands as indicated. Let her dictate the pressure. Most women find the strongest possible pressure the most pleasurable for ending a session. Did you know? Using a blindfold or airline eye mask on the woman can make them less self-conscious and increases tactile sensitivity. Number 12, effortless superhuman, breaking world records with Barry Ross. In 2003, Allison Felix was a 17-year-old high school student. In the space of 12 months, she broke all of Marion Jones's high school records in the 200 meters, went on to run the fastest 200 meters in the world, and then became the first high school athlete to go directly into the professional track. Her coach was Barry Ross. Ross has spent the last 20 years looking for the most elegant answer to one of the biggest questions in all of sports. How do you make humans as fast as possible? His solution has been to reduce the irreducible, beyond even what the author thought possible. In Barry's world, it's nothing special. Here's a quick look at 3 of his athletes that you might find surprising. Number 1, his best female multi-event athlete has deadlifted 405 pounds at a body weight of 132 pounds. Number 2, his best female distance runner has deadlifted 380 pounds at a body weight of 138 pounds. Number 3, his youngest male lifter, 11 years old, has lifted 225 pounds at a body weight of 108 pounds. Nearly all of his athletes, including women, can lift more than twice their body weight without wrist straps, and all have gained less than 10% of additional body weight to get there. The kicker: these results were achieved with less than 15 minutes of actual lifting time under tension, per week. From Pac-10 titles and shot put to gold medals in the 4x100 meter relay, Barry's unusual methods are redefining what is possible. The Effortless Superhuman Protocol. This training protocol for Allison Felix in 2003 consisted of the following 5 exercises 3 times per week. Exercise 1, dynamic stretching before each session. Exercise 2, one of the following: 5 minutes rest between sets. Bench press 2 to 3 sets of 2 to 3 reps, or push-ups 10 to 12 reps. Exercise 3, conventional deadlift to knees, 2 to 3 sets of 2 to 3 reps at 85 to 95% of 1 repetition max, 1 RM. The bar does not go higher than the knee and is dropped from the height rather than returned to the ground by the athlete. Dropping and therefore avoiding the eccentric lowering portion is critical for reducing hamstring injuries when also doing sprint training. Time under tension should be less than 10 seconds per set. For deadlift sets, plyometrics are performed immediately after the end of each set, box jumps of various heights by 4 to 6 reps. Take 5 minutes rest in between sets, with the 5-minute countdown starting after plyometrics. Exercise 4, core exercise, 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps, isometric holds. Exercise 5, static stretching. The workout Allison used was predicated on research that suggested greater ground force support, applying force to the ground at landing, rather than shorter leg swings times, enabled runners to reach faster top speeds. The amount of support force needed to increase speed by 1 meter per second is equal to 1/10 of the body weight. Skeletal muscle is a very effective generator of force. 1 kilogram can produce enough force to support 44 kilograms of mass. Previously, coaches believed that a reduction in fuel supply to the muscle was the cause of speed drops. Research has since shown that the real cause of speed loss is the inability of the fibers to supply sufficient tension. If you need more tension, you need more strength. Conclusion: the first rule of drug use: there is no safe drug. Some drugs are safer than others, but almost anything will kill you at a high enough dose. It's the dose that makes the poison. Never forget this, and don't confuse the effects of moderate use with those of outright abuse. It's the difference between a single 8 to 12 week cycle of low-dose injectable testosterone for surgery on the one hand, and uncycled mega doses of the oral steroid Anadrol 50 for the elite bodybuilding on the other. Below you will find some helpful guidelines for the 15-minute orgasm. Number 1, light contact. Remember 2 pages of paper as the depth of pressure. No more. Number 2, it isn't building toward anything. Keep the practice goal list and remember the intention. Singularly focused repetition for 15 minutes. Number 3, consider using a blindfold or airline eye mask on the woman. Number 4, have her turn off the show. She doesn't need to please you. Make this clear. She doesn't need to moan and groan. It's about subtle sensation and nothing extra. Number 5, make it fun and even call it an experiment. Serious equals tension. Keep it light. Number 6, related to the above, No idle chatter. Some women will talk to distract themselves and prevent orgasm, or to prevent facial expressions of pleasure. Number 7, reinforce relaxation gently if the woman seems tense or anxious.